I guess where I'd love to start is just on natural parenting as a topic itself, from an overview perspective. What is it, and why is it important?
When I started Race Good, I needed a term to sort of clarify what I was talking about. And so natural parenting was what I landed on. And the reason for that was that it just sort of symbolized that this is how we would parent if we were just dropped on a deserted island. How would we parent if there was no books and experts and baby stores and society and all of these influences telling us how we should parent? And sort of really getting back to the basics from an anthropological point of view, evolutionary point of view, and really just how humans were designed to parent. So that's where the term natural parenting came from. It completely changed my world. We were trying to get pregnant, and it took longer to get pregnant than we thought. It took us 3 years, and so we went through the whole infertility journey. And so I'd been reading all about that and finding different things to do. And I was already sort of down that path of digging deeper and looking for natural ways to do things. But then when we were pregnant, I saw my midwife one day, and we were talking about where my baby would sleep. And I had the crib ordered. I'd researched the crib. I was like, it's all organic, like it's non-toxic paint. The mattress is bamboo. It's all the things. And I remember her saying to me, no, he's going to sleep with you. And I was like, what are you talking about? She said, he's going to sleep with you in your bed. And I was like, no, he's not. He's going to sleep in the crib. And but she got my curiosity. I thought she was a bit mad, but I left the consult and I thought, I got to look this up. I got to read more about this. Really piqued my curiosity. And so I started reading about co-sleeping and bed sharing and all of the
Mm.
benefits of it, and how much more sleep you could get as a parent, and how that's how we're designed to parent our babies through the night. And it just sounded amazing to me. And then I started reading about other things like elimination communication. So, like potty training, from quite early on. And I was just hooked right from the start. When our son was born, we still had the crib. I didn't know anyone in real life who had done it this way. So there's a certain amount of fear and anxiety that comes with doing something that you haven't seen somebody else do. But our midwife was very supportive, and we brought our baby into bed from night one. I remember when he was born, and I'd waited, it'd been 3 years of a fertility journey, and then I was pregnant for 42 weeks, and then finally he was born. And then we're in the hospital, and then you're supposed to put them into this clear plastic bassinet thing. And I put him in there because there were signs in the hospital saying, bringing them into bed is dangerous. They must sleep here. And he was sleeping, but I couldn't sleep. I was like, this is such an anticlimax. I've waited all this time and I finally met this new person, and I just picked him up and brought him into the bed. And it wasn't a safe sleeping environment in the hospital beds. They're not designed for that. But I just brought him in, and I couldn't let him go. And it just has brought so much joy to me as a mum. And that kind of then led to not going down the traditional discipline route. We haven't done
Mm.
timeouts. We don't do punishments and threats and rewards and all this kind of stuff. And so it really opened my eyes to the world of conscious parenting and doing things in a different way and parenting through connection. And yeah, and so I wanted to share it with the world. I remember
Mm.
a new mum saying to me one time at a mum's group, she was like, what are you doing? Like, you look so happy. What are you doing that's different? Because we're all exhausted. We've all got 6-month-old babies, and I was exhausted too, but I was on this oxytocin high from, being connected to my baby day and night. And so I
Mm.
wanted to share it. So I started writing, and that's really where Raise Good started.
Yeah. And in that early period where, you mentioned the midwife was suggesting to you, um, to bring your baby into bed with you, and you had obviously a little bit of those doubts and fears of doing it and sort of going against the grain by the sounds of it. What did you do to sort of did you look outside? Did you look into online communities for support? Did you look to speak with other people that have done it? Like, how did you sort of go through that? Or you just said, I'm just going to do this and follow my instinct?
There wasn't really online communities talking about this back then.
Mm,
There are now, which is awesome. But yeah, no, I have a science background. So I used to be a veterinarian. I love diving into science. I love understanding why we do the things that we do. And, and there is so much science to back this up. So
yeah.
probably the world's leading expert, I would say, on mother infant sleeping is Professor
Mm,
James McKenna, and he's now written 2 books on co-sleeping specifically. And so I read his first book at the time, Sleeping with Your Baby, and that was just chock full of all of the research and the reasons why doing this was the way to go, and
mm,
also how to do it safely. So La Leche League is another international organization that supports women with breastfeeding, but they have what's called the Safe Sleep 7. So 7
mm,
things to check off your list in order to make your sleep environment safe, because mothers and babies sleeping next to each other is perfectly natural and normal thing to do.
mm,
But our modern day bedding with our soft mattresses or soft duvets and fluffy, comforters and pillows and all the things, they're not designed with babies in mind. So
mm,
there's definitely things that you need to do to make sure that your bed is safe, to bring your baby into it. So we did all those things. We ended up getting a new mattress, not straight away, but soon after our son was born, we got a new mattress. And that wasn't necessarily for safety. That was more for like when you're rolling over in the night, so you're not all waking each other up. We got a latex mattress so that was easier. Um, but yeah, no, just really dived into understanding how to do it safely, because that's the
yeah.
number one thing that all parents want to do, you know, is to keep your baby safe. Nobody wants to put their baby in danger.
Yeah.
So, yeah, really dived into all of the research and science to understand how to do it safely.
Yeah. Makes sense. Makes sense. And what is the general time frame that a baby sleeps with you in bed? Like how long does that time frame
Oh,
typically last? Is it, does it vary a lot?
yeah. Yeah, it could be
Yeah.
anything. Like
Yeah.
parents might bring their baby into bed for 6 months or for a year or for a couple of years.
Hmm.
In Japan, like and this is where I love looking cross culturally at what other cultures do, or even at what other species do. All social mammals are social sleepers. If you think about
Mm,
if you've got a dog who's had puppies or a cat who's had kittens, if you think about a gorilla in the wild, they're not all separating at nighttime and going to their separate,
mm,
they're all sleeping together, and staying close and keeping their baby safe. Um, and we sleep next to our partners, don't we? We're not
mm,
sleeping in another room. And so yeah, you look at other cultures, and there's this awesome image that I have that a friend of mine, Tracy Castles, who runs Evolutionary Parenting, she first shared it, and it was a photo that someone had taken that had gone to a bedding store in Japan, and they had pictures of the different size beds, a single bed, and it just had one, like a stick figure outline of one person in it, and then a double bed with 2 people in it, and then a queen size bed with 2 big people in it, and then a small person in the middle, and then a king with 2 big people on the outside and 2 little people in the middle.
wow.
And so they talk about in cultures that still have their traditions, like Japanese culture. They talk about children staying in the parents' room really until
Mm,
adolescence.
wow.
So it's it's a big thing for us to shift in our minds, and
Mm,
I think it shifts more and more, as you do it. But
yeah.
it's up to each individual family and also each individual child.
Hmm.
Some kids will get to the toddler years and they'll be like, I want my big bed. Like I'm a big girl now, and they might want to go and do that. But
Hmm.
other little boys might be like, no, like there's no way. Like why would I be off on my own?
Yeah.
So I think that's where it really lends itself to, it's kind of the surrender that you need to go into in parenting. You're not, you don't know exactly how it's going to go. There's no
Yeah.
checklist. There's no time frame, and that can be scary.
Hmm.
Not knowing what to do. And I think so many of us go into parenthood. We might have been in corporate jobs. We might have, we're a very
Mm.
success driven society. We have the checklist of what to do, what to expect.
Yeah.
Um, but if we can surrender to the unknown, kind of, I imagine it as kind of like you're kind of walking into the darkness, but you've got a little flashlight, a little torch that you can see just in front of you, but you can't see right into the future. You don't know exactly what's going to happen.
Yeah.
And to many people, that can be scary and it might make you feel a bit anxious. But for me, I'm like, that's so exciting that I don't know what's
Mm.
going to happen. I get
Mm.
to write it and figure it out. It'd be like going to a movie and knowing the end of the story. Like you want to go and be surprised by life. And I think that's where life can get really exciting and parenting can get exciting because you can figure out what it's going to be for yourself.
Mm.
So, yeah, that's kind of a long answer, but the answer is that there is no right or wrong.
Mhm.
Certainly, from a safety perspective, even now, the American Academy of Pediatrics and most medical organizations around the world are at least that they don't support bed sharing, but they recommend at least for babies to be in the same room
Mhm.
as the parents for at least the first year of life to reduce
Yeah.
the risk of SIDS. Um, so yeah, at least room sharing. So even if you're co-sleeping, but the baby might be on a separate surface in your room, can make a big
Yep.
difference to safety.
Yeah, super interesting. And on the research out there of, co-sleeping, how have they measured some of the studies and stuff that they've done? Like, how have they sort of measured the impact of co-sleeping versus not? And I guess what's a little bit of the data or scientific findings that have come out of that sort of high level, if you have them?
Yeah, well, Professor James McKenna, who I mentioned already, so he's based in the States, and Professor Helen Ball is in the UK, and they'd be the two leading researchers.
Mm.
And like James McKenna has literally spent hours and hours and hours of night times bringing mothers and babies into he has a co-sleeping laboratory watching mothers and babies sleep.
Wow.
The mothers and infants sleep cycles will synchronize, will come together, and he's measured within seconds who wakes up first, the mother or the infant, through the night,
Mm.
because we know that babies wake up through the night, that's normal. And they will rouse within like 3 seconds of each other. And about 40% of the time, it's the mother waking up first and then the baby following. But the great thing that I found about co-sleeping and that is reported in the research is that if you have a baby sleeping next to you, if you're a breastfeeding mother and your baby wakes up through the night, the mothers will wake up and will nurse their baby and then go back to sleep. But you're waking up from a stage of your sleep cycle where you were ready to wake up. You're in a light stage of sleep. And you kind
Mm.
of wake up, but you're not fully awake. You're not turning the lights on and walking down the corridor and trying to get a screaming baby back to sleep. You kind of wake up, nurse the baby, and then just drift back off into sleep. And
Mhm.
so this is one of the reasons why mothers who co-sleep and breastfeed are a lot more rested
Mm.
than mothers who are sleeping separately. So the closer you sleep as well to your baby, the more it supports breastfeeding. So if you have breastfeeding goals to get to a certain point, you're much more likely to get there the closer you keep your baby. So
Yep.
Professor Helen Ball found that in her research. They measured literally the distance apart that mothers and babies were at nighttime, and the closer they were, the more breastfeeding events happen through the night, and the longer that mothers were likely to continue breastfeeding. We synchronize our heart rates. Babies' temperatures through the night, their body temperature stays higher if they're next to mum, so they don't lose as
Mm-hmm.
much heat as
Mm-hmm.
when they're separate. If you put a baby on, if a mother or father puts a baby on their chest, um, if the baby's too cold, it's like within 5 minutes or less than that, the mother's breasts can increase or decrease in temperature by +2 degrees Celsius or -2 degrees Celsius to warm up or cool down the baby.
Wow.
Like, it's
Yeah.
just incredible. And one of the reasons why they think that sleeping next to your baby can actually help to keep them safe is that babies are still learning how to breathe, and
Mm.
they're born early compared to other mammals. So they say that there's the 9 months after a baby being born is a period of extragestation. So it's development outside the womb. So our babies are only born with 25% of their brain development. And within the first 3 years of life, they get to 80%.
Mm.
So the experience and the wiring of their brains um, is 50% dependent on genetics and 50% dependent on the experiences that they have. So if we can give them really healthy experiences, really positive experiences, they're going to develop a brain um, that goes out into the world and believes that the world is a safe place. So
Yeah.
if you believe that the world is a safe place, then you can take for granted that relationships are healthy, that you can lean on people for support, that you can play and
Mm.
just focus on doing positive things in your life. If you grow up with negative experiences in that time frame, um, and this is from an evolutionary perspective to keep us safe. Like, if you grow up in a war zone, then you're going to develop a brain that's hyper vigilant and anxious and looking for threats, and you will have that brain for the rest of your life. Um, and so the experiences that our babies have when they're really young are super important. And so if we can give our babies that closeness and connection at nighttime, rather than doing things like sleep training, um, leaving babies to cry alone, then we can really help them develop brains that are balanced and that
Yeah.
have good mental health. So yeah,
Yeah.
they're just a few of the things. But one of the reasons that it can help to keep babies safe is that because our babies have brains that are so underdeveloped and their breathing systems aren't fully developed yet, the stimulus to breathe is carbon dioxide. And so
Mm.
when the mother is breathing out next to the infant, breathing carbon dioxide, it's helping the infant know to
Ah,
breathe.
okay. Yeah.
So yeah, Professor
Like
James
a
McInerney's
trigger.
measured this kind of stuff too. Yeah, like a trigger. So yeah,
Yeah.
there's so much in it, and it's and
Cool.
it's really amazing when you see science just kind of validating what you
Mm.
feel is right anyway.
Yeah.
Yeah,
Yeah. Super interesting. No, it's great to hear that there's all these different studies that are happening around it. I was just curious to hear, yeah, which ways
yeah,
they were measuring it. So it's really really cool. Such a nice, yeah, way to bridge exactly as you said, something that feels really natural to then see it, in, let's say, the way that we like to measure things in the real world sometimes, of getting the validation that we're sort of seeking.
yeah.
So that's really cool. And I guess as you've started to, when you started to gather all this knowledge and the experience yourself as a mother, like, how did you start sharing? Like, how did you start sharing this story? Like, were you creating a blog and sort of, or just sharing with peers and stuff? Like, how did this start to come out, and you start to share all of this information that you had?
Yeah, it definitely started as a blog. So I just started writing and sharing my work as a blog. Probably like most people, you had a website that you just stuck together, and looking back on it now, it's like like amazing where it came from.
Yeah.
And yeah, I had a science background, so I didn't really pay much attention in English class and just kind of tried to get through. And so I never really had much idea that I was creative or that I could write. And So I took some courses on how to write blog posts and stuff like that. And I went in some blogging competitions and won a couple of them, and
Oh,
just
cool.
started to figure out that actually I could write, even though I didn't think I could. And it just became a bit of a passion. I did it
Mm,
initially just to share my experience and just to say to other mums who might be interested that there was another way to do things.
mm.
So yeah, so it started out as a blog, and it's
Cool.
just
How
grown
long
from
ago
there.
was that? When did you start the
Uh,
blog?
well, when my son was a baby, so yeah, like 10 years ago.
Okay, okay. And
Yeah,
then at what point was it where you started to go, hang on, a lot of people are interested in this?
yeah.
And what was the next iteration after that? After you sort of realized, wow, a lot of people are showing interest, where did it start to? What was the journey from there?
Yeah, I had a post that went back then when the Huffington Post was still a big deal. Not saying that it's not now, but it was a real big deal back then. And I had a couple, I was guest posting on there, and I had a post go viral on my site, and I'd cross posted it to them, and it went viral. And then they interviewed me, and it
Mhm.
suddenly got much bigger very quickly.
Yep.
And that post was about simplifying childhood. And so pretty quickly after that, I kind of felt like I had to learn how to run before I'd learned how to walk.
Hmm.
And so I ended up writing an ebook that was sort of my first digital product, and put that out there and started selling that. And yeah, and then started with some guides after that. And it just, once I'd done those things, then we sort of invested in a better website, and just
Hmm.
slowly started building. Was building on social media. Back then, it was more Facebook than Instagram, and then Instagram came along, and yeah, started a community, like a Facebook community, so that people could come and ask questions within a group. And yeah, it just started growing from there.
Yeah. And what's the current infrastructure at the moment as we see it today? What's all the infrastructure that's set up?
Yeah, well, I now do an annual summit. I'm lucky enough to be able to interview parenting experts from around the world, people like Professor James McKenna and Helen Ball that I've talked about, and so I'm up to my fifth one this year. So that'll be live in September. And I have digital courses now. So selling, I have a digital course about sleep, and I also have a digital course about attachment. And I have a membership community, a paid membership community that I started probably about 18 months ago. And
Hmm.
that's been fantastic. That's something that I really enjoy. And then other sort of smaller digital products and guides, but really the biggest part of it are the courses, and the annual summit and the membership. And
Yeah.
then yeah, continuing to grow on social media, and yeah, getting people off social media onto my email and all that good
Hmm.
stuff. And yeah, yeah, so
And
that's
you're
kind of where
still
it's at.
blogging? Still
Yeah,
blogging
I
as well?
am. I
Yeah.
am. And I want to do that more again. I used to blog weekly when I first started.
Hmm.
That was all I was doing. It's hard, isn't it? It's trying to create
Yeah.
products and courses and record summits and stuff in the background, and then to be able to keep doing that. But yeah,
Yeah.
that's what I really love is writing. Like that's kind of
Yeah.
play for me, rather
Yeah.
than work, which some of the rest of it feels like. So yeah, I
Totally.
would love to free up space and to be able to
So,
blog more.
so you got to start blocking on your calendar, pure writing space for
Yeah, I
the
do.
blog. Yeah.
I do. I put you in charge of
Yeah.
my calendar.
Yeah. No, that's super nice. I mean, a lot of the people that I've, had on the podcast, so far, and a lot of the clients and stuff that we work with, generally they start from a YouTube or Instagram or Facebook
Mm.
page. So it's cool to hear from your story of, starting with a blog and just the medium, that
Yeah,
I
it's
guess
old school.
works. Yeah, is a
Yeah.
good. Well, do you still see? I don't know. I guess are you still sort of active within the blogging world? Do you see, new blogs, coming up? Is it still quite a popular medium for a lot of people? I'm not super. Uh, up to speed with it. But yeah, what's happening in the
Yeah,
world of blogging?
I think I don't know. I kind of want to stick with it because I don't, I think long form content is still, I, there's nothing like sitting down and reading a book. And,
Mm,
and I think sitting down and reading a 2,000 word blog that someone has spent, 4 or 6 weeks researching and writing
mm,
holds so much more value than consuming a 15-second reel. I have much higher expectations for us. I
mm,
don't think that that's a healthy way to go. Shorter and shorter and shorter and shorter form content.
yeah,
So yeah, from that perspective, I think our attention is really worth protecting
yeah,
and preserving, and the more that we fragment it with shorter and shorter form content, which you can't get to the root of, that I don't think you can really get the answers that you're looking for in
mm,
that. And I think if you've really got a problem that you want to solve, if you really want to understand something, then I think it takes longer form content to be able to do that. So I'm still
yeah.
hopeful that we will come back to that. um,
How do you find the balance? Because like from I guess from your Instagram perspective, I guess how have you found a balance between like tailoring a little bit more of that shorter form content to get people back over to your newsletter and blog and stuff? Like, how have you? What's been your
yeah,
strategy on Instagram then?
I do as long as I can on Instagram. You can get quite a bit into a 10 slide carousel, and then with a post. But I
Yeah.
try to direct people back to reading the blog post. And I had a post on Instagram blow up over the weekend, and that's exactly what it was. It was a blog post that I wrote probably 7 years ago, and
Mm-hmm.
and I shared it as a carousel, and directed said, comment the word blog and I will send you a link to the blog. And it's like been my biggest post on Instagram so far, and it's got like
Wow.
80,000 likes and
Wow.
3,000 comments. And
Yeah.
so to me, I'm like, yeah, I think that the
Mm,
algorithm that Meta constantly makes us play with if we want
mm,
to. And I have a love-hate relationship with social media. I think it's
mm.
incredible for connecting people and for growing an audience, and for I wouldn't have the platform that I do without social media. And so to an extent, I understand it's, their rules, but I think there's ways around it too. So yeah, I just try to stay true to what feels good to me. And I think
Mm,
one of the things with social media is, if you're constantly changing to play with the algorithm and constantly trying to play by somebody else's rules, I think that gets really tiring. I think the biggest thing on social media is to do something that, definitely, you've got to play with the algorithm to an extent, but you've got to do something that feels sustainable to you. Because if
yeah.
you're doing something that just feels exhausting, then you're going to give up. If you want to be on it for the long term, then you've got to figure out a way that feels aligned with your values and what feels good to you.
Yeah, no, I like that approach of you finding the medium that works well for you, that's sustainable for you in terms of blog writing, and then you've taken that and transformed it, tailored it to Instagram, and that's those two together have worked really, really well. Instead of you chasing the algorithm to get reach and trying to go viral, it was just more or less, let's take this really valuable blog post I have and put it into a carousel format and add the engagement on there of posting for the full blog post, get the algorithm going a bit that way. But yeah, it's starting from a very authentic, value driven place, and I think that's great to hear that it's working for you. So
Yeah,
yeah,
yeah. I try to.
that's
It's not easy.
yeah,
You get like, oh, like why can't I don't
yeah,
want to do it this way. How do I do it? Trying to figure it
yeah,
out. And I'm still, I'm pivoting and trying to figure out ways to make it work. But
yeah.
yeah.
About the membership, how that structure is working, because you said that's only 18 months old. Like, tell us a
Mm.
bit about that. What's happening inside the membership? Would love to hear.
I'd had things like courses, and the summit is obviously once a year, and so I'd had I'd had these launches, that you get income coming in, but then it drops down again. You're waiting for the next launch, and up and down, up and
Mm-hmm.
down. And so that was one of the reasons strategically why I wanted to bring a membership into it, was for that more consistent monthly income.
Mm.
And I also obviously wanted to be able to support my community in a more in an ongoing way, in real time, and sort of meet their needs where they needed it. So it started as a founding members launch, which was basically like not a whole lot inside the membership. And people come into it at the lowest possible rate, and then really trying to build the membership that people needed. What members were saying they needed. So
Mm-hmm.
we do, inside the membership, we do things like, we obviously have the community, where members are supporting one another, and I'm in there as well. Then I do things like, we might have like short courses that are inside the membership. We have guest experts come in and give workshops. I give workshops. We have a foundation series. So I'm leaning more and more into private podcasts, just because people are wanting to get off their devices. So delivering content for like the last 4 or 5 months, a lot of the content that I've been delivering has been through private podcast. So people can listen to it on the go, just like they would any other podcast. What else? Like cheat sheets, PDFs, like things that people are showing that they that they have a need for. We generally focus on a different topic each month. So like this month we're focusing on play. Last month we were talking all about screens. The month
Mm.
before we were talking about homeschooling. So there's all different topics that we try to cover within the membership, just to support parents with what they're after.
Yeah, super cool. And what's like the engagement like of the members? Are they sort of also getting information from each other, sort of sharing, or is there a lot of
Yeah.
discussion and stuff happening in there?
Yeah, yeah, yeah,
Yeah.
definitely. Yeah. And that's where the real magic happens, right? It's
Yeah.
when you can get members within a community leaning on each other. And
Mm.
I have a Facebook group, and I think there's like 24,000 people or something in there. Well, you can't possibly, in these huge Facebook groups, you can't get to
Keep
know each
up.
other. But
Yeah.
in a smaller community, they know each other's names, they know where they live, get to know each other a lot more intimately. and
Yeah.
and so members get invested in each other, and someone has a concern about something and other people dive in and say, yeah, you're not alone, me too. And then
Mm.
you see members checking in on each other a week later. And so
Yeah.
yeah,
No,
that's
I
where
can
the real
imagine.
magic happens.
Yeah, that must be super nice for, for parents at every stage, if they've got doubts and stuff, just being able to go to a community. Of course, everyone's, got friends, family, well, hopefully, friends and family around, but of course, being able to go to an online community for, support on some of these really, tougher topics or doubts or whatever it is. Got a summit coming up. Tell us a little bit more about that. Like how is that structured? What's involved with the summit? Would love to hear more about that as well.
Yeah, that's coming up in September. So it's a 5-day summit, and there's meant to be 5 speakers every day, but I kept interviewing too many people. So it's probably going to be 6 speakers a day.
Oh,
Um,
wow.
there's too many amazing people to talk to. So it's a free event. So people can come and listen to all of these different parenting experts free. And then if they want to keep the summit afterwards, then they can upgrade and buy a pass, and then it comes with all these other goodies and bonuses, and it comes with a private podcast so that they can listen to it that way as well. So
Nice.
yeah, so that's in September.
How did you come up with the summit idea? Where did that come from?
I think summits are pretty common now, but
Mm.
well, when I started, that there were still summits around then, but I'd just been interested in seeing other people doing them, and I guess the idea of a podcast back then felt a little bit more out of reach. And so I wanted a way to be able to speak to some of these people that were sitting on my bookshelves, and I just thought that that would be amazing to be able to talk to them. and and then COVID happened, and a lot of these speakers who were going to live events and stuff we were all stuck at home, and Zoom, I think, was just getting off the ground then. Like, I think COVID made Zoom, didn't it? And so yeah, getting onto a summit was much easier to do then. And I started to learn about summits. So I took a course on how to run a summit, and really the magic that can happen inside a summit if you've got a platform like this is that it can give you credibility, because you're kind of borrowing credibility from the people that
Right.
you're speaking with.
Yeah.
So it elevates you within the industry. You can amplify your message so much faster, because if you've got speakers also sharing the summit because they're excited to be in it, then the message is getting out so much further. And, for 95% of people that come along and watch it, it's a free event.
Yeah.
So it's a lead magnet in itself. It's a freebie. So you can grow
Yeah.
your email list through doing that. And it's just it's a fun way to give back.
Yeah.
And then obviously also it's a product, to generate income. So
Yeah.
yeah, that's sort of all the bonuses and things that come with running a summit. And now I would
Mm.
love to have a podcast, but yeah, trying to figure out how that would transition. But
Yeah.
yeah, that's sort of
How,
how it came about.
how did the first one go? Because that's like quite a lot to set up for the first time. How was the
Yeah,
first summit that you did? A
it went
lot of
really
learnings.
well.
Okay, great.
Yeah, yeah.
Yeah.
I was surprised. Like, I was lucky. I already had a platform. Like, I had already built a platform myself. Like, I already had, a bit of a social media following. And I had an email list and that kind of stuff. But yeah, it was a bit like that surrender piece that I was talking about in parenting. Like, you're in this dark
Mm.
room with a tiny torch and you're like, I don't know, like, how this is going to go. It's not like you've just done one episode and you're putting it out and seeing how it's going. Like, you've done 25 or 30 interviews and yeah,
Yeah.
investing in the background to make it happen, and then closing your eyes and hoping that it'll do well.
Yeah.
So yeah, no, it went really well, the first one. So
Nice.
then I've kept doing them since then.
It's super nice. And what platform do you use to host the summit? Out of curiosity.
We use Kajabi for
Yeah.
the daily pages and stuff. Yeah, yeah.
Okay.
So
So
we
it's like
use
each day you release a new page with all the videos from that day. Are
yeah.
they released like video by video, like hour by hour, or is it like
No,
every video is available on that
yeah.
day?
So like five videos for that day. Yeah, just comes live at like 6 a.m. 6 a.m. my
Yep.
time. And yeah, and they're just there for 24 hours. And so
Okay.
yeah, so wherever people
Just
are in
for
the world, it doesn't really matter. It's just 24-hour period.
yep.
And yeah, and then that page gets taken down, and then day two goes up, and so
Got you.
on. Yeah.
Oh, it's a nice format. If people want to learn about or register for the summit, where should they go?
Straight to my website. So just raisegood.com. The registration
Yeah.
page isn't up yet. It'll come up in August.
Okay.
But yeah, they can just go straight to my website, and it'll be on the homepage. People can navigate to it from there.
Nice. And that's free, right?
Yeah,
It's a free
yeah,
free
free to
to register.
register, and
Awesome.
and you can tune in, check it out, see if you like it, and
Nice.
yeah, and if people enjoy it, then they can upgrade. But it's there for a week for everyone to go and listen to.
Best of luck with the promotion for that one and the next one when you roll it out in September. But yeah, super nice to have you on.
Oh, pleasure! Thanks so much for having me.